High levels of cholesterol is commonly considered a major risk factor for heart disease and stroke. But is cholesterol really the archenemy of health that we've been led to believe? Dr. Dan Goodenough, founder of Dr. Goodenough Research Institute and Prodrome Sciences, joined Vital Signs host Brendan Fallon to deep dive into why higher cholesterol may not actually be a sign of bad health.
Dr. Goodenough, welcome back to Vital Signs.
Hi, Brendan. Happy to be back.
For starters, atherosclerosis, whereby this plaque forms in the artery wall, this is a main cause of heart disease and stroke. What actually causes atherosclerosis?
Atherosclerosis is the medical term for hardening of the arteries. And so that means that it's basically plaque formation of your artery walls. All of your arteries are like a muscle. They have multiple layers of cells, like multiple concentric layers. They're like a hose. And the inside lining, the lining that's right next to the blood flow, is called your endothelial layer. And it's a bunch of tightly packed cells. And what happens in atherosclerosis is what's called endothelial dysfunction. The tightness of those cells becomes disrupted and they become leaky. And material from your blood supply leaks through the endothelial layer and it creates inflammation in between the different layers. You get this plaque formation in between the endothelial layer and the rest of the artery. And so what happens is that endothelial layer starts protruding more and more into the artery. So the flow through the artery becomes more and more restricted. This is what correlates with increased blood pressure.
One of the materials that can leak through the endothelial layer is cholesterol that's in the bloodstream, is that right?
It's the LDL cholesterol, and it's mostly oxidized LDL. So oxidized low-density lipoprotein containing cholesterol goes into that area. And then once it's in there, it gets inflamed and it gets trapped in that endothelial layer. So at some point in time, if the plaque formation gets large enough, it can either block blood flow completely, and then you'll get a myocardial infarction.
That's a heart attack, basically, isn't it?
Yes, it's a heart attack. And basically it's caused by blood flow blockage and the acute loss of oxygen to your heart. So when your heart gets blocked of having oxygen, you end up with the breakdown. In the brain, that's what you call a stroke. So a stroke in the brain is the same as a myocardial infarction of the heart. And this is caused by either the blood flow being completely blocked off, and then that individual has some sort of stress event that requires higher levels of oxygen and blood flow, and the artery system can't supply it, and then the person has a heart attack.
So that explains the focus on cholesterol in preventing heart disease.
Yeah. So this oxidized LDL and C-reactive protein, these molecules are toxic inflammatory molecules, okay? And so they are associated. So if you have high degrees of LDL and you have oxidative stress in your body, then you have a higher probability of having high levels of oxidized LDL. And so by lowering LDL across the board, we can lower the oxidized LDL.
Which makes sense to do because high cholesterol, particularly LDL cholesterol, is linked to heart disease and other issues.
Well, they're not wrong. Okay, the optimal mortality is a U-shaped curve. Okay, and so when you get to 300 and 400 level, if your cholesterol levels are 400 points, okay, milligrams per deciliter, like that's not good. Okay, that's clearly not what your human body wants to have, and you're going to want to know why are they so high. Okay, so too high is not good, and too low is not good. Every system in the world is that way, right? You keep your house at a certain temperature. Okay, -10 is not a very comfortable place to live, and plus 150 is not a very good place to live. There's a happy little place in the middle, right? The people who have the lowest mortality, which means the highest survival, have total cholesterol between 220 and 240. When it has HDL levels of between 50 to 90 range and LDL cholesterol over 120. And so as you get below that, as LDL levels get below 100 and as total cholesterol levels get below 200, all-cause mortality keeps going up. Okay, so now that's very interesting because that's in complete contrast to this world of cardiovascular disease, right? Which was basically saying, hey, this high cholesterol is linked to these negative outcomes. Cholesterol is a molecule that your body must make from scratch. We clearly can articulate what the optimal cholesterol levels are, because the optimal levels would be the levels that give us the best health and vitality and survival. And that's in the 220-240 range, okay? And so that means if you can't make that much, something is dragging you down, right? There's a reason that you're under some sort of stress. So a person that has good, healthy levels of cholesterol means that their biochemical system is working in this particular spot, like in terms of cholesterol regulation and transport, is working the way it's supposed to work. And so those individuals are more resilient and they have better health. When your cells of your body are deficient in cholesterol, if your cells are weak and they can't make their own cholesterol, they pull cholesterol in through the LDL system. And that's why low cholesterol or low LDL cholesterol means that your cells are biochemically weakened. They can't make enough of their own cholesterol, so they're pulling cholesterol in from the blood supply, thereby lowering the LDL. High levels of HDL are good. They're considered your good cholesterol, because if you have high levels of HDL, it means that your cells are healthy and your cells are making cholesterol and they're exporting cholesterol. They're donating cholesterol to other cells. And so the HDL system goes up because your HDL system is what is sharing your cholesterol, so that makes sure everybody has, all your cells have all the cholesterol that they need. So what happened was in the 80s, late 70s and 80s, there's a huge controversy over, and which still exists today, over the role of cholesterol in heart disease, because many people did not believe that this association was related to cholesterol. Many people believe, still to this day, that it's driven by oxidative stress, and that cholesterol is just a bystander in the process.
To see that full interview and others on how to optimize health, go to ept.ms/vital signs. Vital Signs offers general health information not intended as medical diagnosis or advice. Please consult your doctor before undertaking a new health regimen.